absolute BS. I truly feel that you and you alone are responsible for the life that you want to create and what that life looks like. So 18 months ago, I left the only place I've ever known and called home the past 32 years and set out on a new adventure in life. I remember being filled with so many mixed emotions at the time, but overwhelmingly very hopeful and had dreams of what could be. And I also had nervousness, anxiousness, and the what ifs. Now, the transition certainly hasn't been easy, and there's been obstacles along the way, but now that I've hit the 1.5 year mark, I could look back and say with absolute certainty that this is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. It has allowed me to grow and change in so many positive ways, and I generally feel that had I stayed in the same place I grew up in, I wouldn't have been able to do it. We're gonna get into that and a little bit more in this video, so let's get started. Here are 7 reasons how moving away from home changed my life and how it just may change yours too. Before I moved away, I could sum up my actions and my life in one word: comfortable. Now, don't get me wrong, I love being comfortable. For me, there's nothing better than a cozy night in, on the couch, away from people, with a good bottle of wine and watching a feel-good movie. And there's nothing wrong with this from time to time. However, I feel like I was doing this far too often. It wasn't just my lifestyle at the time, it was my actions. It's as if I was going out of my way to constantly seek comfort. I was avoiding challenges, and I fell into this Groundhog Day way of living. My everyday habits and actions dramatically changed overnight simply because they had to. I had to adventure out. I had to go find a new gym, a new barber, a new place to go grocery shopping. It forced and encouraged me to step outside of my comfort zone with new interactions and new scenery and new people. What was interesting was what my mind was trying to tell me as I was going through this, that everything was unfamiliar and unknown and therefore scary, is much simpler than that. It was just new and therefore exciting. I soon realized with each new interaction that, you know what, I could do this. And not only can I do this, but it's fun and challenging. So number 2 and 3 go hand in hand here. I'm sure we all struggle with this from time to time. And I think it's because we just don't take a moment to sit down and really think about what's important to us. And some of us just have a hard time saying no to people, whether that's a family event or work obligation. And look, I get it. Life sometimes just doesn't care what you think is important, and it throws so much at you. And that's exactly why we need to be even more intentional with what we spend our time on and who we spend our time with. And what does that look like to you? Really ask yourself that question. Do you want to be more productive? Do you want some more time for leisure? Maybe you just want to sit in your backyard for the day and read a good book. Maybe you want to just take some time and spend it in nature. Prior to my move, I found myself saying yes way too often to things that I didn't even want to do. I felt like I had this odd requirement that I better say yes, otherwise I'm going to feel bad about it later. And I want to tell you, that's absolute BS. I truly feel that you and you alone are responsible for the life that you want to create and what that life looks like. And I will say that moving helped a great deal in this area for me. The many events for family and friends, these obligations, they just vanished overnight. This led me to have more freedom in my life and to be more intentional with what I focus on. Weekends were instantly free, and I found myself experimenting and trying new things and new hobbies that would ultimately bring me more joy and happiness in my life. This part of my move, what this has opened up for moving, has been really fun and exciting as I continue to try out different things and step outside of my comfort zone. Have you ever said to yourself, this is who I am. I can't change. I can't even believe I allowed myself to entertain this thought that I could be better or be any different than what I currently am. I'm always going to be this person, and there's no amount of work or effort that I could do that's going to have any lifelong lasting impact or change. I want you to notice the wording in this title. I was able to let go of the old me and old habits. I was able to let go. Before I moved away, I still struggled in many areas of my life that I really wanted to improve and commit to. However, I constantly got in my own way. I had a hard time believing in this new version of myself. I felt like the old me kept popping his head up and is like, hey, remember me? You remember how safe we were? Remember how comfortable we were? Let's go back to doing that. This new guy that you're trying to, it's very uncomfortable. It's very unsafe. I don't like it. Let's get back on the couch. What was sometimes worse than my own voice saying these things were my friends who just couldn't understand why I wanted to change and why I wanted to focus more on my health or my fitness. Or maybe I just wanted to skip a party and stay in and read a book that night just to just have some silence and stillness. They just couldn't get their heads around it. They could not understand. When I moved away, all of this nonsense and background noise, it just disappeared. In a new town, surrounded by new faces, I was able to allow myself to finally let go of the old me and old habits and move forward. I was determined to create a better version of me, and I didn't have to pretend to be anything for anyone anymore. When I turned 30 years old, I remember taking a look at myself in the mirror and just really not liking what I saw looking back at me. And I remember that sucked, but I allowed myself to feel those emotions and go through them. And this allowed me to gather my thoughts and kind of dissect everything and see where I was headed in life. I knew I wanted to make some changes, and I also knew that it was time to start this process. During this process, I realized that there were 3 distinct areas in my life that I wanted to level up: mentally, spiritually, and physically. And the reason I focus on those 3 is I felt as if it would serve as my foundation and have the most impact moving forward. Before I moved, I was so caught up in everyday life and working a lot and sitting in Long Island traffic and making excuses that I was too tired to work on my personal goals. Moving away opened up an entirely new schedule and allowed me to be more efficient with my time. I'm not saying that you need to move away from home to level up in these areas in your life, because I was making good progress prior to my move. However, once I moved, I did see a tremendous leap forward in all of these areas. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on each one because I can honestly speak for hours on them. But for me, mentally, changing my position at work dramatically improved my mental health. No longer was I stuck in this bumper-to-bumper traffic, driving home from Brooklyn, or getting stuck in the city and the stress levels of trying to find parking. Moving to a slower pace of life in general and just driving in the open roads up here has been an absolute game changer in my life. When it came to my spiritual life, it's safe to say it was pretty non-existent. I never picked up my Bible. I rarely prayed. I certainly didn't meditate. I didn't spend any time in nature. That part probably because it would have taken me 45 minutes just to get in my car, sit in traffic, and then go look at a tree. But that's neither here nor there. What has been really fun since I moved is creating a morning routine that is really valuable to me. Part of that morning routine is taking time to sit down and read the Bible, say my prayers, and also spend some time meditating. Now, I don't always meditate. I'm not consistent with it. I want to be because I find a lot of value in it. So I'm working on it, but I'd love to get to a point where I'm meditating every morning as part of the routine. The other key area of my life that vastly improved once I moved is my body physically. I'm going to put up some footage here to show where I am in terms of my body currently. Keep in mind, this is overhead lighting, so it's certainly more flattering. I'm not 100% where I want to be. I don't feel like I ever will be, honestly. But in terms of where I once was, I'm incredibly happy. I do not consider myself to be a fitness guru or a fitness influencer in any way, shape, or form, but I truly find exercise to be so incredibly valuable in many different ways. And whatever that exercise is for you, it doesn't have to be lifting weights. That's just what I find joy in. I was going to the gym pretty consistently prior to my move, but I certainly got more dialed in without a lot of the distractions that I had in my previous life, specifically in my diet. And it was pretty obvious why that happened. I just wasn't spending my weekends or those impromptu nights out anymore with friends or family, which was a breath of fresh air, honestly. As much fun as it was at the time, when I took part in this, it would completely derail my progress for that week. It certainly had some type of negative impact in my diet and my body and in my exercise. I could feel it the next day. Since I've moved, I've noticed incredible strength gains, physical gains with my body, and I'm very happy with where I am right now, especially since where I previously was. I'm still trying to find that Goldilocks zone of taking care of my body physically, mentally, spiritually, and also living my life and enjoying some of the indulgences of this world. It's finding that balance, and I'm pretty confident we'll get there, and we're certainly on our way since we've moved. So I mentioned previously that I grew up on Long Island, And if you don't know where that is, just Google it, okay? Just kidding, here's a picture of it. Beautiful place to grow up. I have a lot of fond memories growing up there. However, as I got older, the cons were certainly starting to outweigh the pros for various different reasons. But one of the biggest reasons for me is how busy and hurried I felt while living there. I'm someone who really appreciates silence and alone time. There's a big emphasis in my life, especially right now, trying to seek this. Moments of peace where I could just slow down, gather my thoughts, and just be. When I moved, I quickly realized that there were more opportunities for these quiet moments just because of where I now live. Outside of my town, in 20 minutes every direction, is open fields and farm country, really. I have access to all these great hiking trails and parks, lakes, not to mention the backdrop of some beautiful scenery that I often will just pull over and take a moment to appreciate. Since I moved away, there are just so many more chances of these little moments where I can escape and sit in the stillness of it all. So it's no surprise that with all these improvements in my life, it has led me to be much happier and more calm in my new place than where I previously was living. It has been really exciting and fun being in a new environment and challenging myself to experience different things. When I look back now to where I was before I had moved away and just my overall state of happiness, I've had zero doubt that this is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. With that being said, I'm human. I still have days that don't go well, and life has its ups and downs, and that's okay. Moving away certainly doesn't immediately fix every problem in my life and make it all better. It's just not how it works. Yes, there are times where I miss my family and my friends, but moving away certainly encouraged and helped me look at my life and try to change it in positive ways, which ultimately it has. Now, I realize that not everyone is in a position to move away from home for a variety of reasons, but if you have that option, I think it is worth exploring. I really do. I think there's something to be said about a fresh start or a new area where you could kind of just reinvent yourself. If you clicked on this video, chances are you're thinking about it. An opportunity may have presented itself, you're on the fence, or maybe there's just something deep down inside of you that wants to get away from it all. And that's exactly where I was. And here's my question to you, the same question I asked myself that pushed me over. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? You move, you don't like it, you hate it. You could always go home. You can always go home. And there's no shame in that. That doesn't make you a failure in any way, shape, or form. At least you tried. You gave it a shot. And that's more than a lot of other people can say in their life. For me, the fear of moving was nothing compared to that fear or being afraid later on in life that I never even gave it a shot. So that's all I got for you today in this video. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you're new, consider subscribing for more content just like this. I hope to see you guys in the next video. But even if I don't, be light, be kind, and be love.